From where the West begins in Fort Worth, Texas, to around the globe, you are listening to Talk in the Night. I'm your host, Paranormal Phil, and later on in the show tonight, we're going to be joined by my guest, James Goi Jr., as we talk about the power of thought and how to attract money using mind powers. But first, McLaurin unveils mind-controlled F1 car concept. The motorsport giant has released the concept video of a true next-generation vehicle known as the MP4X. As of today's Formula One cars weren't futuristic enough, the MP4X is truly the real deal. Doing away with the traditional controls entirely, the impressive vehicle will offer the driver the option to steer his or her own thoughts thanks to a specially designated brain-computer interface. In place of regular widescreen, it will feature a heads-up augmented display with which the driver will be able to keep an eye on the positions of all the other cars in the race. Every component from the engine to the tire treads will be monitored and regulated constantly. Designed by McLaurin's advanced solution arm McLaurin Applied Technologies, the new car is primarily a concept at the moment, but based on real technology. And, of course, this story goes with what we're talking about tonight with my guest, with the power of thought, mind control. And, of course, this is, like I said, a concept car right now. But the way things are going with technology, we could be there controlling things with our mind. So let's talk about this and the power of thought and how to attract money with using mind powers with my guest, James Goi Jr. Welcome to the show, James.
Hello, Phil. Thanks for having me. Nice to be back with you.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has, yeah.
So let the listeners know a little bit about you, what you do, what kind of work you do.
Right. Well, basically, I am a writer, first and foremost. That's pretty much all I do. I'm a relative recluse at this time in my life, so I don't really even venture out from the homestead, my home much. And I've recently published my 10th book. I'm best known for my first book, of course, How to Attract Money Using Mind Power. It's still the book I promote the most. It's the book I find really resonates with people because everyone has a need for money. But I first came to California about 40 years ago or so and started finding my first books on mind power, metaphysics, spirituality, law of attraction, new thought, those types of books. And within the first few years, started teaching that stuff around San Diego and over in Sedona, Arizona for a while. And, of course, the book was a real labor of love. Took me a number of years to write it, and I read hundreds of books in the meantime, collected up hundreds of quotes, which I use 160 in the book. And I'm still very, passionate about teaching people that not only, does their mind and their mindset affect their own behavior, but it affects the behavior and circumstances and conditions out beyond those. And if we know how to use our minds properly, we can use them in ways that can actually cause us to attract a lot more money into our lives. And to me, it's a fascinating process, and I never grow tired of talking about it or practicing it.
Yeah, and a lot of people, we were talking before the break, that people can always use money, and what better topic than what you write about and what you've worked on and studied and took years to write.
Right. Yeah, like we were talking about, whether people have a little money or even billionaires, they're still driven to have more money. And, I'm not a big advocate of like owning lots of stuff that can hold you down and take a lot of your consciousness to maintain. But I don't really think we can have too much money, because money itself is just an idea, it's a thought, and in its liquid form, whether it's in your bank or certain investments that are readily liquid or whatever, it's really, to me, it's mind power. It's like an interface to use mind power in this dimension, because if a person has unlimited funds, somebody wins the lottery, they literally can think of, oh, I like that car, and the next day they can have it. And it's really just, they can have it anyway through mind power, but if they have money, then that is just facilitating it, because the belief and the expectancy is so high because the resources are there. So, and money also frees us up to be more relaxed and to have more resources and time and energy to grow in and accomplish anything that we want to accomplish. And so that's why I think it's one of our main needs. I know it's one of our main needs in modern society, and that's why I choose it to be the first one that I help people to address, because I find once they can get that handled, then they're in the position to be able to look at all these other important areas of life.
Yeah. And of course, I'm trying to remember when I talked about it. It was after I restarted the show again, but I believe I was talking with another guest, and we were talking about how the future of our money situation is slowly going away, as far as it's becoming more electronic with cards and stuff like that, but the money's still there. And of course, this can even play in when people are always using cards, or even like Bitcoin or something like that, or stocks or anything like that. It's still a form of money.
Right. It's something that has value. People at least agree that it has a certain value, and you can exchange it for other things of value, supposedly. But I mean, even right now, today, our monetary system and everything is highly electronic. Most of the money that's supposedly in existence does not actually physically exist in coins and bills. Most of it's just numbers on somebody's bank statement, or numbers on a computer screen. And literally trillions of dollars can be created at the stroke of a pen. And so it's really just it's a form of mind power. It's a way to facilitate the exchange of goods and services, and value one person to the other. And it's just really that you could, a lot of people gripe about how the system is set up and all, and I suppose there's a lot of things we could gripe about, but really, anyone can attract virtually an unlimited amount of money still in this day and age, at least in this country where we are. I know people are listening in other places, but many places still, including the United States, people can come from literally nothing and become, just the top of the heap financially and fame-wise and usefulness-wise. And so, but it all starts with our minds. That's ground zero. What our beliefs are.
You gotta have that willpower to attract that, because if you're not going to want to attract that, if you want to stay complacent where you're at, you're not going to get to that point where you're attracting the money or love or whatever it may be. You're just stuck in that one mindset. Right.
Because at the bottom of it all, and it's the first chapter in How to Attract Money Using Mind Power, really is desire. Our desire needs to be strong enough to propel us and to cause us to do things differently than we've been doing them. If we want to have more, then we're going to have to do more. But a lot of that doing doesn't actually have to be like people think, oh, I got to network, oh, I got to get out there, I got to do this and I got to do that. Well, that's all well and good, and it's part of it, but it really starts in the mind. And sometimes if you get that strong enough, then things will happen even without you doing anything. events will transpire, synchronicities will come about, and your money will come to you. Because once we create the mental blueprint in the realm of consciousness, that's just how it works. I mean, if we maintain that image, then it needs to and will eventually beat into reality here in what we call physical reality.
Mm-hmm. All right. So how did you discover the ability to use mind power to where you could write these books, talk about the subject?
Right. Well, it was way back, with the first books I started reading, and I wasn't one of these skeptics. I mean, I had never heard of this stuff, but I was never one of these people, oh, you got to prove it to me. As soon as I started reading this stuff, I knew it was true. Early books such as Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, Magic of Believing, Claude M. Bristol, Power of Your Subconscious Mind, Dr. Joseph Murphy. And I just knew that this is, because I always felt growing up as a kid that there was something, I would look around and I would think there's something that's really, really important here, but nobody seems to know about it. Nobody talks about it, but I know it's there. What is it? And when I finally started discovering the other side of life, the spiritual side, not only like paranormal, but just mind power wise, I immediately knew, oh, this is what I've been feeling. This is what I've known. And of course, in my early days in California, my greatest need was for money. So I immediately started using techniques like, affirmation and visualization and things just to help me to be successful at what I was trying to be successful at. In the different jobs I had, and to make money, attract money, because I was very hand to mouth. I mean, I've been on welfare, and one time I lived with my girlfriend in a tiny 14-foot trailer for the longest time. I think we lived in two of them at different times in the same trailer park. And I've been, like a night or two in my car, like just on the edge of homelessness, and then, something happens. But I learned that, things can happen in the most unexpected ways at the last minute, and everything can be okay. But you just have to keep that faith. You got to keep that positive mindset. You got to use your mind power. Once you understand that you have it, then you don't have an option of whether or not you're going to use it. You're always using it. But are you using it for your detriment, or are you using it for your growth and fulfillment? That's the question.
Basically, are you using it correctly or not correctly?
Right. And to use it, most people use it a combination, and most people don't actually know about mind power. Like, they don't really understand it at all. And so, sometimes they're thinking positive about certain things, or they're confident in themselves in certain areas of lives, but other areas they're not. And they think, well, I'm not that good at that, and that's why that doesn't work out, but I'm good at this, and that's why I have success here. What they don't understand is it's because they think they're good at this that they have success. And if they would change their thinking about the other areas of their lives, whether it be how they handle money, or how good they are at their profession, then it's really the same processes. But what's fascinating to me is that everyone uses mind power all the time, and if they don't know that they're doing it, then they get a pretty much mixed bag. But once you start to understand the process, then you can start to have more success in all areas of your life, because the principles and techniques are the same, whether we're trying to attract money or a mate or perfect home or whatever we're looking for.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what got you interested in metaphysics and the whole thing, mind power?
Yeah, it was basically those books, those first books. As soon as I started reading those books, I thought, oh my God, this is the missing link. This is what I've always been looking for. And I immediately started going to swap meets and yard sales and old bookstores and thrift stores, and just piling up everything I could find on these subjects, and just read like a maniac for years, and immediately started applying what I was learning. I mean, from the first book, from the first time that one of these concepts reached my mind, from that moment, that first concept, that's been my life ever since. I mean, to me, it's like night and day, living, not understanding how your mind works and living how your mind works. It's like two completely different ways of living. And from the first time I started learning my first concepts and principles, I've been living a completely different life than the average person on the street who doesn't have this understanding.
Yeah. And of course, with me, it's pretty much kind of the same thing, but with the paranormal. I had my first experience when I was 5 years old, and that interest just kept growing and growing. I would want, rather than even in my teenage years, I would want something on the paranormal, whether it be a book on Bigfoot, which I got in my early teens. I don't have it no more, but I got that. And then it just kept growing because I had an interest in that. And I stuck with it. And that's what kept me going in the paranormal field for now 27 years.
Right. That's right. Our energy goes where our energy flows, where our attention goes, and we can grow and learn and become proficient and expert and authorities in any area that we choose. And when we choose an area for the right reasons, in other words, not, I'm going to do this profession because they make a lot of money, but when we actually let our own interests guide us into how we spend our time and energy. In other words, with you and with what I do, we would do these things and did do these things even before there was ever any hint that we could even, you can make money doing it or whatever. And so when we follow our passions, then we're following the lead of the universe, and we're moving in the areas and in the direction the universe wants us to move, is my understanding and belief. And when we do that, then the universe has a way of working out the details and smoothing the way for us.
Yeah, because, I started out doing talk radio 7 years ago, more as just a hobby to help people understand what's going on in their lives with the paranormal, or what they might be experiencing and stuff like that. And I found that I really enjoyed talking about it and really enjoyed doing radio. So I just kind of increased it and just worked at it to get it to where it is now. I'm still not at the point where I want to be, but I got that mindset and, of course, the power of mind to attract this. But I got that mindset that where I want to take this is to a professional level where I'm making money off of it and everything like that. Of course, I know it's not going to happen overnight, but if I keep on that thought of this is where I want to be, this is where I'm going to get.
Right. You keep the vision, you keep moving forward, you keep the right attitude, you watch for opportunities, because they'll pop up, and you make opportunities where there aren't any, and you know where you're heading, but yet when you really do know where you're heading, you're not really in any kind of a hurry. Like, I never feel any real sense. The only sense of urgency I ever feel is with my own, performance, like, things I want to get done in a certain day and I don't get to them. But as far as all the end results that I'm creating in my mind, I really don't have a sense of urgency, because I truly do believe in the concept of divine order, and inherent within that concept is the concept of divine time. So for things to come about in divine order, they need to come about in divine time. And a lot of times that can't be, really, it can never be forced, because when we create the end results and allow the universe and our subconscious mind to work out the details, that's when the real magic happens and things unfold in ways that we never even could have imagined. But we need to have that patience. And we still have desire. We still are not completely, happy and content where we are, although we're very grateful for where we are and we recognize all the blessings. But we do have this drive to move forward, but it's not an overpowering, stressful thing, because we know if we maintain the vision, keep moving forward, watch for the signs, do our part when we're guided what to do, things have a magical way of working out.
Yeah, because a lot of people tend to think, okay, this is what I want. I want this car or this amount in my bank account. But some people tend to get frustrated when it's not happening. There's been times that I've been broken. I would love to have the money right away, right now, because I need it. But I just leave it up to faith. I know somehow I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to make it work for me, even though I need it now. The universe is probably saying, no, there's something else you got to look at.
Right, exactly. The feelings of frustration and just impatience, they will tend to, first of all, make us not very happy, because those types of feelings don't create, good feeling chemicals in our brains. But really, it will tend to be a repelling force to what it is we're trying to attract. So just from that standpoint, it's good to try to be philosophical, have the large picture and the long game in mind, and just to know that this is all part of the game. And if we keep the emotions positive, then things will keep working out in positive ways. If our emotions turn negative and fearful, and we have trepidation and frustration and all of this, then we will see that we'll drive things away from us, or things will take longer than maybe they should have and could have. And then that turns out to be a positive ultimately, because we learn from that. We learn, oh, well, I really better not be that way if I'm really serious about creating what I want. And so it's a great learning ground. And really the way I practice it and teach it, it's a highly spiritual process. We grow spiritually at the same time, just side by side with growing in our material, prowess and sustenance and all of that.
All right. So, how does the mind powers work to help us manifest what we want, especially as far as like money?
Right. I think it starts with the understanding. I mean, once we get past the desire and when we build up our desire so we have enough so that it'll make us act, it really starts with the understanding that what the mystics and I've always told us, the quantum physicists tell us now, is that we're in sort of like a hologram or an illusion here. Nothing is really as it seems. We think we live in a material world, but there's nothing really material about it. If you look down to the tiniest levels of creation, we used to think there were solid particles, inside of molecules and stuff, but there's nothing there. There's waves of energy, waveforms. It's just potential. And so when we understand, the main thing to really be a powerful manifester and money attractor, I think, and you can attract a lot of money even without having this more deeper insight, just by using the techniques, because the techniques recondition your mind in a certain way and work. But to really become extremely powerful and be able to do other things like that defy, people have a hard time believing it. Like I've made a car start using mind power in the middle of the desert in the middle of the night so I could get out of a dangerous situation, a car that wasn't running. And it kept people from pulling guns, different things like that. But to get to those levels of being able to apply this, and also, of course, to attracting money, is that we understand that all of this is created somewhere else. This world we're looking at is really a world of effect, and cause is in consciousness. And so we begin to understand that it's what we create in consciousness. That's what ultimately will arise within this illusion here, this physical world we perceive. But we create it somewhere else. And it's very freeing, because you think to yourself, well, I don't need to create, $100,000 in my bank. I don't have to create $1 million in my bank or whatever the figure is. I need to create that money in my mind, in the bank in my mind, and then it will come here. And it's a very freeing concept when you realize that there's ground zero and then there's everything else. And so when we go to where things are really created, we put most of our thought and energy there, and then we know that it's going to come into being here. And so that is a very freeing concept. Wherever people are today, financially and in all areas of their lives, understand that that's exactly where you brought yourself to be through your own thoughts, feelings, images, the words you've been speaking, and as a result of all of that, the actions you've been taking. You change your thoughts and feelings and images as really the ground of being right there. Everything else will change. It has no choice but to change. Just as you brought this into existence, you could bring something completely new into existence, but you have to have completely new thoughts, feelings, and images.
Yeah, because, this was a whole, with my radio show, it was a whole concept that this is what I love to do, so how can I make this work? And I started thinking about everything that needs to be done to put on the show, and, of course, doing this for as many years as I've been doing it, it's still always a learning process, and that's what I feel with what you're talking about as far as using mind powers. It's gonna be a learning curve, basically.
Right. There is a learning curve, and there is no substitute for experience. So in the beginning, people get really excited and, they visualize to create parking spots, for instance, downtown where they never can find a parking spot. And all of a sudden they can, I've gotten very good at that. I've gotten good at if I go out for walks, I can find money all over the place, way more than like a penny that you'd normally find on an hour walk, but bills and little piles of change. But it's through long experience that we really get to the deeper levels of our power, I think.
All right. So when did you first write the book, How to Attract Money Using Mind Powers?
Right. Well, it actually took me about 9 years from start to finish. And I guess it was around 1999, I guess, or somewhere in there, where I first had the first idea, the first working title, put down the first, page of writing or whatever. And then, but life doesn't travel in a straight line, right? It travels in zigzags, and I ended up
end up getting distracted and going down a different path for a little bit, basically.
Right. Life takes over. You have to deal with things you never thought you had to deal with. I moved around and lived in many different states in those times, during that time. But I just kept coming back to the book. I really didn't understand. I didn't know how to type. I never used a computer until about a year before I published my book. I finally got a computer because I knew, I would need one to be able to let people know about my book. And I was utterly shocked and fascinated when I realized and learned that there was actually, this is how naive I was. This is how non-tech I was just 11 years ago. I actually was surprised when I learned that there was video and audio on the computer I had bought on the internet. I thought it was all going to be text because years before, many years before that, I'd seen a computer, and been around a couple computers, but it was just like text, like programs. So I started from absolute ground zero, didn't know how I was going to go about publishing my book, or just didn't know anything. And I'm still not very techie, but of course I'm way, I know way more than I did then. I still need help with technical things like in my publishing, and there's certain programs that are very advanced that I don't use, but I use Skype screen sharing to work with people who have the skills so they can execute my vision for book interiors and covers and things like that. So everything's there for us. Whether or not we have the skills ourselves, we can enlist the help of other people who do, but it all comes back to following our inner guidance of what we're here to do. What are we here to do? How can we serve, humanity best? How are we going to be the happiest? What is it, the kinds of things that we would do even if we weren't getting paid? And, the proof is that some of the most successful people, whether they're actors or musicians or writers, they did do what they love doing for years on end before anybody ever really paid them anything to be able to point at. And those are the people that end up being what the rest of us look to as examples of success.
Yeah, well, there's always that saying, do what you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life.
And that's very true. But in reality, you get, like if you work for someone else, you can work, 8 hours a day and go home and forget about it in a lot of jobs. If you work for yourself, a lot of times you're working maybe 16 hours a day, but like you just said, it really doesn't feel like work. It's your passion. It's what you do. It's like breathing and eating and sleeping every day. It's not something you have to push yourself to do for the most part, and you never watch the clock. Like I never watch the clock. I don't set alarms. I get up when my body wakes up, and I spend every single day doing exactly what I want to do, and that's where the universe wants me, and the universe helps to support me in that, and has done that for years on end now.
Yeah. Well, of course, like me, still working a 9-to-5 job, basically, just so I can pay my bills, but I got to get into the whole thought, okay, when is that going to drive me to the point where I'm exhausted, I can't do it anymore, and, of course, my body's telling me, you got to slow down, you're doing way too much, but the part I look that I'm doing way too much is actually working that 9-to-5 job that's not getting me nowhere, and it's something that I'm just doing for the money, working to live, or trying to think of how it goes. I'm living to work rather than working to live. And I want to do something I love that is going to, at the same time, pay me, but also bring joy to my life. Because if we're stuck doing something that is not going to bring joy into our life, we're not going to attract the things that we want.
We're not going to attract the things we want. That's exactly correct. Not through those avenues. We're not going to be as healthy. We're not going to be as happy. We're not going to be as fulfilled. And a lot of times we do need to do things like that in the beginning. I mean, I've worked, all kinds of jobs that I would really rather not have been working. Some of them not good for my health. Like years ago, I did silk screen for periods of time in different shops, even was a manager, and, making the screens with this, whatever they called it, MEK, these solvents and things that I was breathing in, and, just stressful jobs. I had a nervous breakdown, and I was a telemarketing manager, had my first nervous breakdown at 25 years old, just from the sheer stress of 12-hour days, 7 days a week, literally. I ran 4 shifts a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Even on the holidays, we were making calls, and that broke me. And so I certainly know, there's a lot of people out there that are doing that. But the sad part for people is when they don't have a vision beyond that. I mean, a lot of people are resigned to that, to whatever the job is, or that they'll be having some job that they don't like, and it's just a part of life, and they'll be working, until they die, or, whatever, till they can't work any longer. And it's sad because I think it's good to do that kind of stuff in the beginning, because then you can really appreciate later. Like, I don't think everybody should, come out of high school and be given a CEO position or something, or the lead in their first Hollywood film or something. I think people should pay their dues and learn, what real life is like out there. So many people now who are worth hundreds of millions and billions, and they're famous, they know what it's like to barely be able to pay their rent on their studio apartment and things like that. And that's very valuable. But we don't want that forever.
I hate to cut you off, but we are at the first commercial break. We'll be right back with my guest, James Goi Jr., as we talk about the power of thought and how to attract money using mind powers.
Still stay the same. told my moms not to stress no more. Go hit the Bentley store and no credit card debts no more. I bought the crib and it's an escrow now. So you don't...
Are you a ghost hunter or paranormal enthusiast and need equipment to go out and investigate locations that have spirit activity? Well, GhostStop.com has all the equipment that you will need. They have a Boo Buddy ghost hunting kit for $169.95, or how about a Keep Calm and Ghost Hunt t-shirt for $19.95. Click on the banner ad at the top of the Talking the Night website and get shopping today. GhostStop.com, your one-stop shop for all your ghost hunting needs. Do you have a paranormal team? Are you a small-time author? Do you have a radio show that you would like to promote? Is there anything that you would like to get the word out there about but don't have a big budget? Well, Talking the Night has an opportunity for you to sponsor the show without breaking your wallet. Contact the show at talkingthenight@outlook.com or on the show's website or Facebook page for more details. Do you think you have a haunted or cursed object? Well, Nicole Gaspard does, and in her book Haunted Vessels and Cursed Objects, she talks about her continued paranormal and supernatural ghost encounters, haunted dolls, and other items that are supposed to be haunted or cursed. Pick up your copy today on Amazon.com.
Of the sun, to dream, believe in strength. Now I'm the only one, only one. I was an ordinary boy until I broke the rules, my life destroyed. Life destroyed. Until I woke awake, scream my mind, I shout, the ground shakes. How much can I take? My mind will break.
Okay, and we are back with my guest, James Goi Jr., as we talk about mind powers and power of thought and how to attract money using mind powers. So before the break, we were talking about, let's see, I'm trying to see where I was here. We were talking about your first book and how you got to writing it. Now, what do you say to like those that are skeptical on the whole thought of using mind powers to attract money or whatever?
Right. The first thing I might ask them is, are they religious? And if so, what religion? Because look into your own, look in the Bible, look in any of the ancient teachings or scriptures, and they're just full of mind power examples and concepts. As a man thinketh, or have the faith of a mustard seed and tell the mountain to go from here to over there. Buddha said we are what we think about all day, if you're a Buddhist. So this information has been around. And so it's not really that obscure, but people don't really take it at face value. They think it's some kind of ancient, just stories or something. But I would tell people to open your mind, do a little research, read, some of the spiritual writings and the mind power writings, and start to try out the techniques. Start to understand some concepts and try it out. It'll work. Even before you do that, just read about how it works and then look at your own life. Look at how you think and how you speak and how that has created your life the way it is right now.
Yeah, well, there's been times that I've run into people of different faith, of course. I'm Wiccan, and I've run into those people that I like to call Bible thumpers that are stuck on that one belief system to where they're not open to other things, such as like they're like the skeptics and stuff like that. And when I tell them I either practice witchcraft or I'm into the paranormal, that their answers are, well, you practice witchcraft, you're a devil worshiper, or you're into the paranormal. There's no such thing as ghosts and spirits. Well, I come back at them in the nicest way possible, saying, well, if you would actually take time to actually learn and read up on it, Wiccans, we don't believe in the devil. Or like they say, there's no such thing as ghosts or spirits. I'm like, okay, well, doesn't the Bible say that Jesus was the Holy Ghost or Spirit? Well, there's your ghost and spirit.
Right. People seem to pick and choose the parts of even their own belief systems that they want to quote unquote believe, and they can tend to get a very narrow view of how things are. And very simply, anything that's outside of that narrow scope of understanding and belief is just going to be rejected out of hand, at least in the beginning. Now, people do change over time. I'm not a real evangelist. Like, I don't try to change people, but when I see a genuine interest, I do try to speak a little, sense, I guess I could call it, into people that, hey, your view is one. There are millions of different views, and they all have some, realm of plausibility and usability. And why not open your mind a little bit? Why not learn a little something else? Why not try a little something else? Now, certain teachings or cults or whatever, the people are really dissuaded from, like anything outside of their own belief system is not of God, or it's of the devil, or it's walking on the dark side. And, sometimes if people's minds, they're really being controlled by some leader or something, you can't really speak, not in the short term. They're not going to come around for the most part. You become the enemy if you try to enlighten them. Yeah. But I do try to help and enlighten people wherever I see a genuine opening, like when the query is sincere. But otherwise, I believe that everyone, I've had my own different beliefs years and years back, and I was involved in a spiritual group, and I adhered to their philosophy and all of that, and I'm glad I did. I came out of it, much more in control of my own mind once I saw that someone else had actually taken it over for a while. And so I think everything leads to the good, and everyone's on their own path. So I don't really look at it as, right or wrong or whatever, but I do look at things as being even more ideal or less ideal in the long term. Just about anything is okay in the short term, can be used as a learning experience. But if we drag it out for a lifetime, then I think we can really be missing out.
Yeah, of course, like you talked about the cults and stuff like that, where somebody's controlling a whole group of people, and that is a form of mind control, using the mind powers to control that group to make them believe what they want them to believe. But I tried to do is tell. In my own way, tried to tell everybody's got their own opinions, their own thoughts, their own way of thinking. And I'm not trying to change anybody to my way of beliefs or anything like that, because that's just me being like one of those cult leaders saying, you got to believe this or it's nothing. No, I don't want to do that. I want people to be open to hearing other opinions, but understand that there are people with other opinions.
Right. And have tolerance and patience with people. That's a sign of someone who is really a fanatic, is that they have no tolerance and they have no patience, and they show outright hostility for anything that doesn't fit in their neat little box of their worldview. And people like that can actually be dangerous. I try to avoid them because, I've been at this for, more than a decade now, and believe me, I've heard from different people that, this is the devil's work, and why so much consciousness on money, and money is evil, and just really mixed up thinking. And it's fine. Those are their thoughts, but they feel compelled to try to change me. And of course, that's not going to happen. So they're wasting their time there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's where things get bad, when somebody tries to change your way of thinking. Let's see, I think it was Monday night and even last night, I was talking about how things are like vibrational energy and stuff like that, and how we can use that ability to help the world and everything like that. But at the same time, we don't want to get to that point where, like it's a Star Trek episode with the Borg, where we're one collective, and we gotta remain open to where we're got our different opinions, different thoughts, and everything like that.
Right. And if everybody thought that way and had tolerance in that way, that would cure most of our problems. I mean, we wouldn't have the world wars and, skirmishes and all of the violence we have. If people were just, they're not at this time for the most part, but if people were less concerned with self and more concerned with the well-being of the whole, which really is a concern for self, because if the whole is not going to make it, then we're not going to make it. And so, and different ones of us have a different road and a different way, if we are helping at all, to try to do that. Whether it's just through setting a quiet example, whether it's being having a radio show, whether it's writing books, and we put what we do out there, knowing that those who are going to resonate with what we have to share are going to resonate to it, and that people who need it, who don't know that they'll even be interested yet, will be guided to it, or someone will give them a book or loan them a book or something. And we just kind of can have a very relaxed perspective of things, knowing that in the bigger picture, everything is always working towards healing and wholeness. And when we understand that, we can look at a lot of the turmoil and know that it's almost like a healing crisis. It's like something leading to something better. But like they say, it's darkest before the dawn. So we have to go through some uncomfortableness to get there. But it takes the people who are a little more aware and who have some knowledge that can help to just stick to their guns, not be fanatical, set a good example, and just keep doing what they do, keep following their heart, keep following the universe, and things will work out.
Yeah, and basically keeping the faith and what they're trying to do and accomplish.
Right. Keeping their vision in mind and not, violating the rights of other people, but not letting other people drag them down either, or dissuade them from their path that they know to be right for them. You just got to stay the course, and the results will be there.
Yeah. Now, speaking of faith, what happens if we don't have that faith that we can attract money using mind powers, or attract anything else using the mind powers?
Right. Well, quite simply, we need to, if we want to attract money with mind power or other good things into our lives, we need to develop the faith. And basically, we could call that belief. That's chapter 2 in my book. And like I said, I quote 160 other authors in my book, and I start each chapter with a quote. And here's the quote I open that chapter with, from Claude M. Bristol, from The Magic of Believing. I mentioned that book earlier, 1948. And, quote, "Belief changes the tempo of the mind or thought frequency. Like a huge magnet, it draws the subconscious forces into play, changing your whole aura and affecting everything about you, including people and objects at great distances." And that's a very powerful. It tells us that when we believe, then we are causing things to happen outside of ourselves. And so if people don't have faith now, by reading books like this, by finding information like this, they can begin to recondition their minds to have belief and faith that mind power works. Let's just start with that. And then they can develop that further. Like I have a chapter in the book on self-image. They can develop that belief further to include themselves. Not only does mind power work, not only can we affect material reality with our minds, human beings, but I can do it. Me as an individual, I can do this. And so slowly, through learning and reading of other people's experiences and other people who are teaching this, that's how. If you have no faith or understanding or belief, start by getting some understanding, and then slowly you will retrain your mind to recognize reality and truth and how things really work. Study, read a book on quantum physics. This is cutting edge science. The observed and the observer are not separate. Consciousness is creative in itself. It can't be anything else. So observation is a creative act. We are recreating everything we're observing by how we're judging it and how we're assessing it. And people can learn this. Now, people who are just absolutely not going to be convinced and have completely closed minds and no faith in that sense, they might not ever come around. But people who really, if there's even a tiny opening, they can stick their toe in the foot of that door and just start learning and following these teachings, and following, like in my book, I have make it very simple, little simple steps they can do, and this will work. Anyone can do it.
Now, is there some other quotes in your book or other books that you would like to read besides that one that you gave us?
Oh, certainly. I mean, I have a lot of quotes in here, and let's see. One very powerful thing that I'd like to talk about is the speak as if technique, as I've coined the phrase, and I have that as chapter 8 in my book. So the concept here is that people really don't understand how powerful their words are. Their unguarded words expose the way they really think, but also our words come out of our mouth and go back in our ears, our own ears, and so they reinforce how we think. And so I have some great quotes in that chapter. For instance, from Julius Seaton, The Science of Success, 1914, if we listen to the words of the failure multitude, we will soon learn that by their words they are justified and condemned. End quote. Basically, she's saying you get what you say. And then there's another from Georgiana Tree West, Prosperity's 10 Commandments from 1944. The laws of mind go into operation through our words. So, end quote. So we're really, amping up the power of our thoughts by speaking them, by putting them into words. And here's another one from Walter DeVoe, Mystic Words of Mighty Power, 1905. Quote, thoughts are living things, and spoken words give to thoughts a body of physical vibrations, which makes them still stronger. End quote. So again, there he's saying what I just said is that we actually increase the amplitude or the power of our thoughts by the words that we use. So if we speak of abundance and success, we're going to tend to attract them, basically. If we speak of lack and, failure, for instance, we're going to attract those things. But, I love, these quotes really can help people to not only see that, the information is good, but that it's not new. It's not anything I made up, and that this stuff has been around for literally hundreds and even thousands of years. I'm turning to the chapter on intuition, and here's Ralph Waldo Emerson from Self-Reliance, 1841, and he wrote, "We lie in the lap of immense intelligence, which makes us receivers of its truth and organs of its activities." End quote. And that's from 1841. That's from Ralph Waldo Emerson, a respected writer. And it really just speaks to this whole process of being connected to the universe, and that we can receive that truth intuitively, and we can know things that we couldn't know in any other way, but also that we become organs of its activities. And that's what I was talking about earlier, being guided by the universe to do what it wants you to do. That's what organs of its activities means. And so it's really, I love using the quotes in this particular book. I mean, out of 10 books, it's the only book I really used the quotes in. It's one reason it took me so long to write the book, because I had to collect all of those. but it's very empowering for people. It helps to cement the belief angle, because now with the 160 quotes in this book backing up everything I teach in the book, it's not like, I wonder if he's right. I wonder if it's his, if his opinion is correct, because there's all of these famous from the past and from the present. I mean, I quote Chuck Norris and Sylvester Stallone in the chapter on visualization as an example. So from the oldest of the old to the newest, at least up to the time that I published my book, first published it in 2007, and then recently republished it. The backup is there. All of these great minds and successful people we've come to respect and have faith in, that they know something. They are all basically speaking the same kind of talk and have been for throughout human history, really.
Yeah, and of course you got to have the intent. If you put that good intent into it, that's what you're going to get out of it. If you put that bad intent into it, you're going to get that bad intent. So intent plays a big part in just about everything in our life.
Right. It really does. What are we intending to do? Are we intending to grow and to expand and to succeed further than we've been doing? Or are we just intending to try to get by and just to not lose the ground we've gained, and to not venture too far out of our comfort zone, and to not take any risks? It's our intention that's leading us. What do we intend to do? When we intend to do something, it's almost a level of expectancy. Like we assume we are going to do it because we intend to do it. And in that concept, there's not really any room for, I intend to be a millionaire as long as I can do it within 10 years. No, I intend to do something means I intend to do it no matter how long it takes or what it takes.
Yeah, there's no time limit.
There's no time limit, right? And it's okay to have like time limits on goals, like, I want to be this by that or accomplish this by that. But we're not bound by even those. Even in written goals where we might use a time limit, it's just a guideline. We never want to overstep our bounds and force the universe to do something in a way it's not quite ready for, because then it won't be in divine order, and then there can be unintended negative consequences for ourselves and for others. That's why I really, really stress the part about not being overly, zealous or frustrated or eager, and keeping your vision in mind. But you can have time frames in mind, but don't be bound by them, because the universe always knows better. The universe's timeline might be 1 week after your deadline. And if you get it on your deadline, there's going to be all kinds of negative stuff, could be potentially that you would rather not have, or it keeps you from better possibilities and opportunities. And why not wait a week later? Why not wait 10 years more? If it's the right thing at the right time, time is really irrelevant.
Yeah. Now, we were talking about quotes, and I want to get into this before the break at the top of the hour. And it's a quote by Einstein, and of course, I got the thinking for this question when I was watching that YouTube video that I was talking to you about before the show, where you were talking about Einstein quotes and stuff. But the quote is, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." Now, is this a mindset that we do not want to have when we want to attract money using mind powers or
anything else? I mean, that's a very wonderful, and I've heard that, of course, before. But, in other words, let's just rephrase it into, we can't create financial abundance by using the same state of mind we used to create our lack and being poor or whatever. We have to have a new state of mind. We can't solve problems that we created unless we change the state of mind that we're in. It requires a whole new outlook, and a reframing of things is how I look at it.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the point that I was trying to get to, because we're always kind of reliving the past rather than taking the past and learn from it and change our way of thinking. Okay, this didn't work, let's try something else, but we'll learn from the past what didn't work.
Right. We can always use that as a guideline the things that didn't work are the things we don't want to do again, as long as we've given them a fair chance and a fair try. And if that didn't work, something else will work. And sometimes we got to get those things out of the way so that we can find out they don't work, and it frees us up to do other things.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We're at the top of the hour, but we'll be right back with my guest, James Goi Jr., as we talk about the power of thoughts. And, of course, in the second hour, we'll have the phone lines open where you can call in and ask any question to my guest. We'll be right back.
Race cars, the sky's the limit, kids, so shoot for the stars. So I strum that guitar every day. Found the passion for music never went away. I joined a couple bands and played a few shows. Tried to impress the girl in the front row. But soon enough, everything starts to change. As you grow up, nobody treats you the same. They try to take your future and make it real safe. You could be a doctor, accountant, or something sane. But yo, whatever happened to the sky was the limit. I fell in love with music, never thought it was a gimmick. I worked so hard on every tune and every single lyric. My whole identity depended on being artistic. Now you wanna strip that away so you feel okay? Cause if I make it to the top, what does that really say? That you shouldn't have given up, that you made the mistake? But if I fail, you feel much better about picking your lane, right?
Do you have a talk radio, Facebook Live, or YouTube show and would like guests for your show but don't know where to go to get them? Well, go to radioguestlist.com and sign up today. They have all different experts in different fields, and you can find the ones that are just right for your show. That's radioguestlist.com. Sign up today. It's free.
If you like finding out about different things in the paranormal field, such as ghost stories, haunted locations, UFOs, cryptozoology, and much more, well, check out Into the Paranormal on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. Videos are posted once a week. To read about the story of Giant Rock and see the trailer of Giant Rock the movie, just click on the link on the Talk of the Night website and it'll take you right there. GiantRockTheMovie.com.
Yeah, let's go. I ain't the first with the curse, with the thirst that I wanna be better, not worse, man it hurts. I'm on this earth with my words and I put them all together, insert, cause I wanna have worth. Working hella hard till they put me in the dirt. Gonna go far, man, listen to my words. Gonna be a star, man, life's like a blur. When you're working this hard till you get what you deserve. Yeah, I ain't taking a backseat, I'm passing anybody else who is rapping. I'm nasty, ain't nobody able to catch me. They gasping, they cannot compare, they can't match me. I'm at half speed, I got your girl.
To call into the show, Skype, Talk in the Night, or by phone at 817-717-5561. And now, back to Talk in the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil. Okay, and we are back with my guest, James Goi Jr., as we talk about the power of thought. And before we get into something else besides his books and stuff like that, but it all plays a part in the mind powers and stuff like that. But I want to get into or ask this question. You mentioned about 10 books that you have written. What are some of those books?
Right. And now I'm a songwriter also, not a professional, but I have two of the books are books of my song lyrics. So I've got my song lyrics volumes 1 and 2, and there's 50 lyrics in each. And then I have How to Attract Money Using Mind Power, of course. I have a book called Attract Money Forever, which is a companion book to How to Attract Money Using Mind Power, and that's the one people can get for free when they go to my website, jamesgoijr.com. And then I've got some really interesting books here that were written almost by mistake, but there are no mistakes, but I didn't actually sit down planning to write them. And those are Advanced Manifesting Made Easy, The God Function, which is a very different take on God probably than we've ever seen before, but it kind of flowed through me. Aware Power Functioning, another money-themed book, 10 Metaphysical Secrets of Manifesting Money. And then I have a book, the subtitle is, it's called JGJ Thoughts, Quotes, Quips, Humor, Street Smarts, Spirituality, Metaphysics, Mind Power, Success, Riches, and More. And it's just all little freestanding writings of mine. Some are humorous, some will make you think. And then my newest book, which just came out very recently, and that's The Supernatural Power of Thought. And that's a very, that book there, I actually did not even sit down. Like some of the other books, I sat down to write a little article or something, and all of a sudden, 2 days later, it turns into a book within 2 to 4 days. I immediately knew as soon as I started writing, paragraph or two, oh, wait, this isn't what I thought it was. This is something else. But this book here, The Supernatural Power of Thought, it's my newest book, and I actually I had no thought of writing anything at the moment, and I was on Amazon, and I was poking around. I looked at my books. I was looking at some other books, and I saw this book, and the first words of the title were The Supernatural Power of. And my mind immediately put thought in as the fifth word, and I thought, oh, wow, Supernatural Power of Thought. That's a great title for a book. My very next thought was, I'm going to write a book with that title, and my very next thought was, I got to start writing that book right now. It was bizarre, and so I wrote 5 chapters of that book right then and there, and then 4 days later, I had finished this book. It took me several months to get it into print. There's a lot that goes into that, but I could have done it quicker. The next one I think will be quicker, and so there it was. So these books are they all have an eye toward manifesting and creating our reality, but they're very, very spiritually, deep, really giving people a very deep grasp and understanding of like anybody can do metaphysical techniques. Anybody can visualize or do affirmations when they know the techniques, but to really have a deep understanding of why things work, of why things like that work, and how we're creating our reality. It really gives you almost superhuman power. It is superhuman to the average human mind because we don't understand that we have this power. There's nothing superhuman about it. It's just a spiritual energy that we all have access to, and we can learn how to use it. With the proper understanding, we can use it wisely, and our lives can completely be transformed.
Yeah, like that quote from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility, so you got to use it wisely.
Right. And if you don't, you can, wreak a lot of havoc in your own life and for other people. You can cause problems. You can cause very, very bad things to happen, either on purpose by using it in a negative, nefarious, black art, black magic kind of a way. But there's always a very, very heavy price to pay for you, especially consciously using this power for anything other than peace, harmony, abundance, and prosperity, and good for everyone concerned. If we ever use it not being concerned for other people, or use it in ways where other people have loss for our gain and all, we will pay the price at some point, and our gain will be short-lived. So that's a good warning to people that you do not want to abuse this understanding, because you don't understand the great negative consequences that you are going to cause as a natural repercussion of the negative energy that you put out.
Yeah, and of course it all goes back to the intent.
Right. It's even more important sometimes than what we actually end up doing or saying, is what is the intention behind it? Is it to help? Is it to heal? or is it to harm and hinder? You know, is it to have control over people, or is it to help aid people to you know, have a better life in some way? Is it, you know, motivated by self-interest and selfishness, or by interest in others and selflessness? It's all goes back to the intent, because that's the energy boomerang that we're tossing out, and it's going to make its circle in the universe. It is going to come back to us at some time or another, and it's going to carry the sum and substance of what it carried when we sent it out. And that's why, you know, I look at benevolence, something just simple as the concept of benevolence being, in a real, very real sense, a self-defense practice. Because by being benevolent in heart, mind, action, deed, and word to all other living, you know, creatures, really, we are attracting to us that kind of protective aura, shield, and circumstances that will help keep us in harmony and safe and everything else. And if we're malevolent and we have, you know, ill intentions for others, we try to harm people, cause loss, then we're gonna, in one way or another, we are going to suffer. That could be having car accidents. That could be having, different kinds of illnesses befall us, huge financial losses. This is, you know, there's like a scales in the universe, and they're always balancing toward the good, and nothing good or bad ever goes unrecognized and unrewarded in the one way, or, you know, unpunished if it's something negative.
Yeah. All right, so I want to mention that the phone lines are open if you got a question for my guests. Also, on Spreaker, if you go to the player, there's a little chat bubble. Click on that, pop in the chat, say hi. If you got a question and you don't want to call, pop in the chat, ask a question. And speaking of questions, I do have a question from the chat. What if we want or need a car? Do we have to be specific about it?
Some people would teach that you should, and I really don't teach that. It's really the general idea of what you want. Now, if you really need a car and you're even asking a question, it probably means you don't just have the money to go out and get a car right now, the car you would want. So why, in my mind, is what is this for? Is it to travel back and forth to work? Okay, you need something that looks halfway decent and runs good. You need it to get a certain job done. And so if you're going to sit there and say, well, I want a, you know, pristine 1965 Mustang, you know, this color, all original interior, and you're just limiting the universe's possibilities of bringing that to you. So in the one sense, though, if you want to collect cars and you're looking for a certain car or something for your collection, that's completely different. But no, you can visualize an exact make and model of a car, but you can also just have the fuzzy image of a car in your driveway. You can see yourself in your mind driving that car back and forth to work, to where, you know, now you might be riding the bus. So it's just, it can go either way. But just remember that the looser we are with our demands and expectancies, then the more opportunities there are. It's like if I want a 6-bedroom house on the north side of town, on the east side of 10th Avenue, and 6 bedrooms and la la la. And well, what if there's a 7-bedroom house? What if there's a 5-bedroom house with a huge den? That would have been just perfect. By being too specific, we can actually be keeping away things that would be possibly even better than what we were imagining.
Yep, so true. Because we want to have a thought of what we want, but to also keep it open that, okay, I can settle with something that is close to it, but not exactly what I really want.
Right, but also it might not be quite up to what you want, but guess what? It can also be a little better than what you would have been, rigidly demanding it had to be. You might get something even better by leaving the door more open and the possibilities more open.
Yeah, all right. So let's get into a little bit about the paranormal, since this is a paranormal talk radio show. for the most part. Of course, I do shows on other topics as well, but for the most part, the paranormal is what I know. And you mentioned that you have had paranormal experiences. When was the first time that you had your first experience?
I guess the first experience I can be sure of that I can, remember, I guess I was 5.5 or maybe I lived in this house when I was having these types of experiences. I was between when I was 5 to like 6.5, I believe. And it started out as what I thought were dreams, but which I now recognize were out-of-body experiences. So every night, and my mother tells me that at that time I was afraid to go to bed. I hated to go to bed. I never wanted to go to bed. And the reason was because I was getting out of my body at night, and I was sitting in my room, and I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. And everything was really, eerie and scary. But I had this experience one night where the old lady that lived across the street from us, this is back in New Jersey, she was sitting in a rocking chair in my room. And she was an old frazzle-haired, white-haired Italian lady, and she was rocking and staring at me like with an evil stare. And she started rocking faster and faster, and the wind started howling in my room, and she started like hackling like a witch, laughing, ah ha ha, and then her chair started spinning around. The wind was howling like a tornado, and then the ceiling opened up, and her wheelchair like went into a tornado spin and went up through the ceiling. And I had this same exact experience every single night for, I don't know, let's say near a week or whatever, but it was, a number of days. And then one morning, my mother told me that the lady, and I had the experience the night before, that the old lady from across the street died last night. And I never had that experience again. Like she was literally gone. So, but I've been a kind of an attractive light. I've been attracting all kinds of negative, dead people and demon type things and stuff my whole life. They kind of like seek me out. And like that lady, she was coming from across the street to my house. Why my house? Why my bedroom? Why not somebody else? Well, because I was vulnerable. I'm open. I'm psychic. She can see that, especially when she's out of her body, which she was when she was in my room. And so I've had a lot of experiences with dead people in houses I've lived in, with astral travel to other dimensions even, lucid dreaming, divine intervention, using mind power to make really, like I said before, starting a car in the desert in the middle of the night, just all kinds of things. I actually had a run-in with a demon in my 20s where I was with a woman one night who was actually possessed by a demon, and the demon was talking to me through her in a male voice, and she had a very feminine voice, and this was a very deep male voice, and I got that thing in me, and it was a whole almost like a week, and I almost shot myself during that time because the thing wanted me to kill myself, and then I finally got helped out of that. Some years later, I was able to I participated in an exorcism in Sedona, and it was because what I had been through with my own demon run-in that I was able to participate in that exorcism. It wasn't like through the church or whatever, but it was the exorcising of a demon from a young woman. And just so many different things that directions we could go with this, because I've just had a lot of experience, lived in haunted houses, and just all kinds of craziness, really. And I live with a natural-born medium, my life partner, Kathy. So we see dead people all the time around the house. We see and talk to friends that we've known in this lifetime who are dead now. And the way that came around was interesting because I used to do little, like all of a sudden around the house, I would just launch into acting and talking like someone that we knew from the past who was dead. And so I would just, like if they had a This one fella had like a pot belly, and he carried his shoulders low, and so I'd start walking like him and talking just like him, and I thought I was being funny. I'm doing a little skit about so and so, and then one day I was doing that, and something caught me in the corner of my eye, and I turned and looked, and I saw that person, and I realized, oh my God, this, and then it just fell into place. All this time I'd been imitating people. It was them. They had come into the house. So now not only do I immediately see them, but I can also just call them in if I want, because they're just a thought away. Everything's just a thought away. There are dead people everywhere. There's people walking around the streets. We were sitting, waiting for our car to be fixed, and there's a lady sitting across the room. A young man sitting across the room, college age, with his grandmother, his dead grandmother, standing right behind him, and things like that. Once you can see these things, there's paranormal basically everywhere.
Oh yeah. Well, see, like me, I had my first experience at the age of 5, and I've been hearing a lot from people that their first experience, or at least the one they can remember, is around 5, 6 years old. But right now, I'm considered a highly psychic, a light worker. I do the light work. I don't delve into the darkness in the sense of wanting to do that kind of stuff. But I also, at the same time, use my experience from when I was still new to the field and everything like that. I would mess with the darker arts of things, not knowing that I was doing that, but and it took a while to get rid of this darker energy, as I believe. I don't believe in demons, but to each their own beliefs. But it affected me, and it took a while to get rid of. Now that I'm at that point where I'm a light worker and everything like that, and project that white light to help others, I find that these darker energies, or demons, or whatever you want to call them, tend to run away from me.
Right. And there's a couple different levels of it too that I've seen. And one is that the higher you make your own vibration, you talk, working in the light and things like that. So the higher in that realm you can be, the more out of touch you are to lower forms of energy. Some people call them demons, or just lost souls, or malevolent souls, or whatever. There's all levels of consciousness. But on the other level, what I've also found is sometimes true is that people can then, as they're rising up, they can attract opposition. So, especially if what they're doing is really can be perceived as a threat to the darkness, because those on the dark side, like when that person was interviewing me through this woman I was with, and actually knew things about me that the woman didn't know, like that I had done the S training, for instance, not too long before that, and different things. I've learned that they're extremely intelligent. And so you can actually attract, which I have in my lifetime, and not only from the other side, but there's a lot of people walking around on the streets who are susceptible to these discarnate beings, who can actually be influenced by them in some way or another. So I've been set upon by people meaning to do me harm, that I recognize that it's not even them. They're just an open doorway for this energy that's coming through. Yeah. But even though we might be working in the light, and we might tend to attract the attention, like Sylvia Brown used to talk about, her bedroom at night could be like a bus station with all the comings and goings of all these different personages or people or whatever. Even though we might attract them more, we might become more visible to them sometimes. We also become more buffered and protected from them. So the higher our vibration is, the harder it is for the lower vibrations to actually affect us in a negative way. That's been my experience with it from that that particular angle.
Yeah. Now, see, I've had, I want to say it was about it was a year ago, out in Beverly Hills. There was this house where it had a darker energy to it. And this person that was still new to their abilities, being an empath, a psychic, and everything like that, they were just learning about it, was more susceptible to it, and they got physically ill by entering this house during a ghost investigation. Well, when they came out, of course, I went into action as a light worker would, and pretty much told this person to breathe, close their eyes, take deep breaths, and then imagine the brightest white light that you could imagine. And of course, at the same time, while they were doing that, I was projecting that white light onto them to help them feel better, which it just took like 2 minutes. And they were automatically feeling better because they allowed that darkness to affect them.
Right. Ultimately, actually, and that's a good point. We allow things like that to happen. People feel like they're at the effect of, but it doesn't really matter whether it's material world experiences or otherworldly energy or whatever. On some level of ourselves, we're allowing it because at higher levels of ourselves, we can rise above it and be immune from it. So whether it's someone else like you that can point something out, redirect a person's energy consciousness, actually channel in the white light for them, helping them to raise in their vibration and to start to, take control of the situation. But that is available to each person in each moment. But it doesn't just happen out of the blue. Someone's got to point it out to you, or you've got to just find it within yourself that, hey, wait, I don't have to be at the effect of this. This is not, and it can be even material world, financial emergencies or whatever. And we just look within ourselves and say, you know what? I have the power to take control of this situation, or at least to not be negatively affected by it. And in the end, it's all good, whether someone else points it out to us, directly helps us with their energy, or whether we just dig in and we do it, even if it's out of sheer and utter desperation. We always have the power, and it's always available to us.
Yeah. All right. So you talked about some of the other experiences, like out-of-body experiences, other dimensions, which we're going to get into. But I want to hear about some of the out-of-body, and we talked about it, you talked about it when you were young, having those out-of-body experiences. What were those, or what did those feel like to you?
Right. Well, a lot of times in the very early young ages, in the dreams where you think that they're dreams, but they're really out-of-body experiences. And so a lot of that was the feeling of falling, especially towards the end of the dream. You feel like you're digging with your fingernails, sliding down the side of a mountain, or you're falling through a tube trying to hold the sides, and then you thump into your bed. But I mean, now I have out-of-body experiences, whether they're just right here in the physical realm, or if I go off into some other, world. I mean, there's other worlds out there that are kind of like this one, but they're different in certain ways. Like one place I went to, all the houses were completely glass. No one had anything to hide. In other words, you could see right through everyone's walls. But I just routinely now, even without trying, like I'll just wake up and I'll be standing by the door of my bedroom, and I'll look around and I'll think, what's going on here? And then I'll think, oh, I'm out of my body. It takes a moment to acclimate. But I've been in and out for my entire life. Some people travel out of, they astral travel from the waking state, but I do it from the sleeping state. I've actually gone from where I'm having a normal nighttime dream one time into a lucid dream where I realize I'm dreaming, into a full-blown astral event where I got picked up by scooped up like a baby in the arms of some kind of a being which I never saw, that carried me through a long tunnel to a place where I lived in another dimension. And I had a woman, I don't know if you call it a wife or not, and a baby. And everything looked normal except for the fact that she was oriental and blue. And I never thought to yeah, she's blue. They're blue there. And I never thought to look at my own hands or find a mirror and look at myself. But I imagine if I would have been blue also, because that was just, and it seemed normal though. I didn't think, oh wow, she's blue. I didn't think about it until the next day. Then I thought, oh, she was blue, a blue Oriental woman. And to me, it seemed normal.
Yeah. See, like with me, I can do it, the astral projection, as far as in the waking hours when I'm awake, but I have to prepare myself before I can do that. Like I'll look at a picture, because when I do readings for people, I've done readings for people all the way over in Romania and that area, and that's a good distance away. Especially when I did it, I was living in California, so I just looked at a picture and I projected myself over there so I could do that reading for the person. But as you said, some people can do it during their waking life, and some people it's just done while they're sleeping. And there's whether it be like an out-of-body experience, lucid dreaming, and so forth.
Right. And sometimes there's not very clear lines between a lucid dream and an out-of-body experience. I've come to recognize, as a matter of fact, because I was going to be doing this interview tonight, I took a 2-hour, what ended up being a 2-hour nap this afternoon, and I had an out-of-body experience where I ended up in my living room, and I was, looking out the window, and a couple of people came. Now, whether or not people actually came to my door, because I actually have the bell turned off, because I don't like to be disturbed if I'm not expecting somebody. But it just kind of happens as a normal event. So even if people think they're not having out-of-body experiences, for instance, if they're routinely having dreams in the exact environment that they're in their house, and they're dreaming that they're in that house, in my experience, that is more than likely actually an out-of-body experience. Now, things can happen that we fill in with our mind. Like I remember one time I got out of my body in bed. Like sometimes I'll become aware and conscious and wake up in my sleeping body. And I'll know I'm asleep and my body's asleep. And then there's different techniques, rising up or projecting yourself to the other side of the room or rocking back and forth until you can get out of your body. But I was in the same exact at the time, many years ago, it was an apartment I lived in, but there was a chandelier on the ceiling. So what was that from? Was that from somebody had that there before? Was my mind just filling that in? There's just basically differences. I'm a very private person, kind of territorial. I don't like people just coming and going on my private space. And so when I was on the second floor, and when I opened the door to the apartment and looked down the stairs, there was an iron gate there. It's the same exact everything, including the stairs, but there was an iron gate there. And I realized that the next day that my mind, that was a gate that was there in the energy realm. That's a gate I put up. If this was my property and I owned it, I'd have a gate there. Not anybody can just walk up the stairs and, knock on my door. And then from there, I went out and into the parking lot, and I jumped up and flew, and then I just, all of a sudden, it's like something grabbed me, and I took off, and then I was set down on a cul-de-sac somewhere at night. And this is the place I mentioned where no one, like all the buildings are made out of glass or some kind of clear material. And so I was walking around that cul-de-sac, and I come across this very slight, thin person, shorter than me. What I ended up seeing was a woman. She had a hoodie, with the hood pulled way down. And so I realized that even though I was in a place where everyone, most people were at a level where they really didn't feel like they had anything to hide. And the proof was that anybody could go by and see right into their houses. And I did. I saw people sitting around in their living rooms and things like that. But then you see this little dark, person with the hood pulled down and stuff walking around that cul-de-sac, peeking in on people. I thought, okay, the base consciousness in this dimension, this place I've visited, this parallel universe, whatever you want to call it, is really quite high. But guess what? We still have lower people who are hiding, who are sneaking around at night, who are peeking at people. And it's just like this world here. There's all levels of consciousness. And now I think we're in the process of raising that base plane consciousness.
Yeah, we're at the commercial break, the last break of the show, but we'll be right back with more with my guest, James Goi Jr. Just for Talking the Night listeners, go to vibrationalenergy.com and mention Talking the Night to receive a 10% discount off either a 30-minute intuitive spiritual reading or spiritual clarity session via phone or Skype with Debbie Anderson. Just click on the link on the Talking the Night website. If you would like the book, Proof of Survival by Mike Cavalli, which is available on Lulu.com and Amazon.com, go to Facebook.com/Sacred Circle Community and mention Talking the Night to get free shipping on the book. Just click on the link on the Talking the Night website. When you go to JamesGoiJr.com and subscribe to his free monthly Mind Power and Money Enzyme, you will get a free PDF copy of his book, Attract Money Forever. Just click on the link on the Talk of the Night website for more information.
People gonna keep on talking about me. Feels like I am dreaming, letting go of these demons. I just wanna know what's on your mind. There's not enough reasons, it's not like I need them. I just wanna know what's on your mind. What's on your mind? It's like 3 a.m. You're still on my mind. Let's not waste no time. Just tell me how you're feeling. You still have my heart, although we've been apart. Let's go back to the start. I think we're both too brief.
To call into the show, Skype, Talk in the Night, or by phone at 817-717-5561. And now, back to Talk in the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil. Okay, and we are back with my guest, James Goi Jr., as we get into the last half hour of the show. Before the break, we were talking about out-of-body experiences, and a lot of things that I hear from people that have had these experiences, and of course, I don't remember ever having an actual out-of-body experience. It's more been astral projection, but not actually out-of-body experience where I'm actually out of my body and looking down on myself. Now, I've had lucid dreamings, but getting to the point is I've heard people say that there's like some kind of tether attached from their body to their spiritual body, the out-of-body experience body. Did you notice something like that when you had out-of-body experiences?
People talk about that silver cord, for instance, and it's really, it can be as long as it needs to be, and it can get as thin as it needs to be. But I personally, no, I've never looked for it, but I've never had that experience or seen that cord. And I've traveled, long distances and through long tunnels and into outer space to get some, what seemed like outer space, but I've never seen that. And I think some people see it, some people don't, and I never have.
Okay, so, yeah, I guess you have to kind of be looking for it to actually see something like that. But, I mean, to each their own way of experiencing such things. Now, you were talking about other dimensions, like the place with the glass house and stuff. Was that like an out-of-body experience, or was that just like entering some other dimension?
Well, that's really out-of-body experience and / astral travel, because like in the one where I told you with the glass houses, I actually, the experience started in my apartment, in my bed. And I woke up and became aware. It's like you're looking right through your closed eyelids. You think your eyes are open, but you know that your body's sleeping, so your eyes are actually closed, but you're seeing through your eyelids. And so and then I rocked back and forth in this particular instance and finally got, separated myself from my body. So now I'm into a full-blown out-of-body experience. I'm outside of my body. My body's still in the bed. I'm now standing up on the other side of the room. And then I go outside. I go into the parking lot, and I jump up and fly, and then I land on this cul-de-sac in some other dimension, which is pure and simple astral travel. I used to also, like when I lived up in Oregon the first time, I used to travel back. There was a period of time I was traveling back to New Jersey. So there I am. That's astral travel, but it's in this same physical earth world that I know, not some other odd place, where the people are blue or the houses are made of glass. And I'd be in the old neighborhood I used to hang around, where my grandparents lived, and I would I'd see my grandfather walking around the streets at night, only not old and sick like I remembered him, but like in the prime of his life, like 35 years old or something. And I would talk to him and things of that nature, and then I'd end up back, in Oregon, of course, in the morning. And so, but out of body and astral travel, and again, even lucid dreaming, there's no fine lines in between them. I think everybody gets out of their body every night, at least separated to some degree. I think that's an accepted philosophy. But one of the reasons I believe that people get out of their bodies and don't know it is because I became I'm very sensitive. So like one thing that can wake me up, even though my body remains asleep, is if some other energy or consciousness comes near me. Like in one situation, there was the dead lady in the house I lived in was watching me from across the room, and I became awake and could look back at her, but my body was still sleeping. But years before that, not too long before that, we were in another house, and I woke up one night and knew something was wrong. I woke up in my astral body, and I stood up out of my body, and I looked around the corner real quick, and I saw somebody peeking in my window. And so I ran to the window and looked, and I seen my neighbor running, and then running right through his front door. But he was out of his body. Now he's an old guy that he used to have church meetings in his house every Sunday, and so I'm sure he doesn't know he does out of body. He gets out of his body, has out of body experiences. But I also know that he was a very nosy person, so he's always poking his nose over, trying to see what's going on next door. And there he was, peeking in my window, but he had, I'm sure, no recollection of it. So here's is one example of a person getting out of their body and not retaining any of the memories, just like most people don't remember most of their dreams. It's all what level of how you can retain those experiences.
Yeah. Now, sometimes, like me, I'll remember some parts of my dreams, especially when I have a very vivid lucid dream, which I've been working on, trying to improve that ability to have those lucid dreams. But, and then there's other times that I don't remember nothing, but when I do remember, it's just little snippets for like 1 or 2 minutes, and unless I write something down, it's gone the rest of the day. It's gone into the deepest parts of my subconscious where I forget about it altogether because I'm focused on too many other things.
Right. And, one thing you mentioned that's really helpful is the writing things down. I always keep at times in my life, I've kept a recorder, voice recorder. It's a lot easier. But right now I'm using a notebook, but I've always got a notebook right next to my bed. And if I wake up even for a moment or two in the middle of the night, if I'll write down even just a few words of what the experience was, I'll wake up and I'll look at that and I'll say, oh yeah. And then I can remember even parts of the dreams, or maybe even the dream before that. But if you don't write something down, invariably, even if you wake up remembering a dream, like you said, you're just going to go throughout your day, and even a half hour later, now what was that dream I remembered this morning? It'll be gone.
Yeah, and there's been some times that I just want to go back to sleep just to try to finish it.
Right. And when I was in my deepest level of where I was doing a lot of up in Oregon the first time, when I first learned of lucid dreaming through a book I got out of the library, and I was doing a lot of lucid dreaming, and as a result, having a lot of out-of-body experiences at the same time each night, I was recording huge. I mean, it was taking me, I was using a recorder, and it was taking me half the day to write everything down. It was just just the volume of it. But by increasing our dream recall, that makes us puts us in a much better position to start having lucid dreams, because we're breaking down the barrier. See, most people got this very strong brick wall in between this world and that world, the daily life and the dream life. And when we start to break that down, and we start to be able to remember in our waking life the dreams we had over there, or the experiences we had over there, well, it can work both ways. We can start, and we can even do things to make lucid dreaming more probable, or to increase our lucid dreaming, like testing our state when we're awake, asking ourselves, well, am I really awake right now? How do I know this isn't a dream?
Yeah.
And you'll find yourself asking those types of questions when you are dreaming, and you'll be shocked and happily surprised when you realize, like one of the things, there's a couple things I do. One is I'll jump up in the air, and if I stay up, longer, like if I recognize that, this is not normal gravity, like I'm staying up longer than I should stay up, or if I push my hand really hard into a table or a wall, if I'm dreaming, that it'll actually go through. And when it does, I'm always really surprised, because I was just let me see if I'm dreaming. And I really didn't think I was dreaming. But then my hand goes through the wall. Yeah. But the reason I do that is because I train myself in the daytime. So I'll just walk up to the wall on the way to the bathroom, put my hand on there and push really, really hard. Let me see, is this a dream or not? Even though I'm thinking 100%, I know I'm awake. But sometimes you think 100% you're awake, and you actually realize in that moment that you're dreaming. And so I have at least several lucid dreams, a month in the least. That's without even trying. And the same with the out of body. Like I said, I just had one this afternoon without even trying. But when I cultivate those things, and I really want to focus on them, then my production goes through the roof, with lucid dreams and with the getting out of the body.
Now, speaking of lucid dreaming, out-of-body experiences, and going back to the whole thing of mind powers, is something like that help us to open our minds to use those abilities to attract like money and other things?
For me, I think it does. I mean, strictly speaking, if we understand the mind power principles and techniques like I teach them in the book, the main manual, How to Attract Money Using Mind Power, we don't really need to be lucid dreamers, out-of-body travelers, or any of that. But there is a certain level of an increase in consciousness when we start to come in line with our creative abilities as, almost just superhuman, mind power, where we use our minds to actually make things happen. And it really increases your awareness of your own power. And so when you start to learn lucid dreaming, you're increasing your awareness of your own consciousness. And when you start to get out of your body, or at least start to be able to recall and even induce out-of-body experiences, all of this has to do with an increased level of awareness, just as does using mind power to create. So I think all of it can help, But there are a lot of people who do lucid dreaming, for instance, who really don't know anything about manifesting. But yet they're good lucid dreamers, but they don't really know about positive thinking and manifesting. And then there's people who are really good at all of this, and a lot of the teachers that teach this stuff, but yet they've never done lucid dreaming or anything like that. So I think everything can complement each other, but I also think that any one of the areas where you want to focus your attention, you can excel to the exclusion, really, of the others.
All right, and so now, other than like the out of body experiences, being able to see the spirits and stuff like that, have you had any other experiences in the paranormal, such as UFOs or anything like that?
Right. I have seen UFOs. At different times. I mean, there was a number of years here. People can even look it up on red lights over El Cajon. We lived in El Cajon, California, and on the 4th of July every year, there was red lights in the sky. And they were, really high up, almost like tiny little pinpoints and stars, and they moved in formation, and there'd be several of them, and then they would just sit for long periods. But one particular year, we had that, but we also had a triangular shaped, translucent vehicle of some sort, a huge above the house and a lot lower than the others. And it seems like we lost some time that night. Like, we're not quite sure. First we're in the back of the house, then we're out in the front in the driveway, something like that. But I have seen, different kinds of things like that too over the years here and there, even in broad daylight and certainly at night. And using mind power in miraculous ways, lots of ghosts and different kinds of energies, deja vu experiences. Yeah. I remember once when I was a teenager and I walked into a classroom and I automatically knew the scene that was going to unfold in the next 2 seconds right in front of me, which was two guys breaking into a brawl with each other. And I knew exactly how that scenario was going to go. I have routinely have, this is a paranormal, I guess. I routinely have dreams where I dream of people that I know, and they were having some kind of interaction, and it actually shows me all of their true thoughts and feelings. So there'll be someone I just met who's, buddying up to me or something, and they want to help me with this or that, but then I'll have a dream and I'll see their real intentions. Yeah. And that's a very useful tool to be able to know people's true intentions. I mean, I can kind of know anyway just through intuition, but some people are really slick and you don't know. And so sometimes I can get that kind of information in dreams. And then premonitions, like when my partner Kathy and my life partner Kathy and her sister had totaled our car, and they got hit from out of the blue by literally a drunk sailor a few years back. They had left the house, and all of a sudden I got gripped with this feeling of dread, and I called them on the phone and I said, you don't need to go today, come home. I was pleading with them. Of course they didn't, and then they had that experience. So it's probably other things I'm not thinking of too, but just I mean literally every day is either a dead person, an out-of-body experience, a premonition. It's just, to us around here, it's just normal. Yeah. I mean, there's always something happening.
Yeah, well, see, like me, I also have that ability to read people. Of course, I don't try to do it on purpose or anything like that, or without their knowledge, because I'm not going to mention something to them that I'm reading them and getting their vibration off of them to let them know something, because then there might be that time where they'll think, okay, he's just a kook or something like that. He's crazy. But also at the same time, I don't want to invade their personal space by saying, okay, I can read what you're thinking, and them get upset. So I try not to do that as much as possible, but it is a ability that I do have.
Right. And I think a lot of times it's for us, especially when it comes to people who are not quite what they're purporting themselves to be. Like when we can see through, and some people, they just seem so gullible. I mean, you could have the biggest, sociopath in the world, and everybody else in the room loves them, and they're the center of attention, and oh, what a wonderful person, but then there's those few people, and my father has that ability too. I remember he told me he was working. He had a career as a correctional officer, but he was working also security at a hospital at night. And there was this one person that everybody just loved, and he never liked them, and he didn't trust them. And he's the only one that didn't like this person. And it come to find out that this guy was a terrible guy. He was messing around with some of the neighborhood kids, and he got caught. He ended up actually committing suicide in jail for this offense against children. But he had everyone fooled, but except for my father. My grandfather was the same way. He just had radar. If a bad person walks into the room, boom, we know. We just know. And I guess I don't know if I get this from them or whatever, but my grandfather on my father's side and my father were the same exact way. And I don't think we're meant to tell, but by the way, buddy, I'm getting these vibes, and I know that you're a sociopathic, homicidal maniac, but it's for us to know, to help protect ourselves and then maybe even other people through what we know.
Yeah. And of course, a lot of it has to do with reading people's body language. And of course, all this that we've been talking about tonight goes back to our mind and how we use it to affect our lives, whether it be attracting money or using it for other purposes. But again, also the intent that you put into it.
Right. It's just what interests us, what's important to us, what catches our attention, or what do we purposely put our attention on, and then we can grow in those areas, and we can become very proficient at doing things that the average person can't do. Some people are expert magicians, I mean, they do stuff that just boggles your mind, boggles other magicians' minds. I mean, it's sleight of hand or some kind of deception, but you can't figure out. But here's somebody who, bought his first magic kit when he was 9 or 8 or something, and he's been doing it his whole life. And it can be that with music, with writing, with any area of study, with paranormal, with paranormal type, exercises such as lucid dreaming, out of body, attracting, manifesting. It's all, where do we want to put our minds, and what's important to us, and what of the many, many, many latent abilities we have, which ones do we really want to focus on and increase?
Yeah. All right. So we're running out of time in the show. Where can the listeners find information about you and your books?
Certainly, the best thing to do is just to go to my website, jamesgoijr.com, jamesgoijr.com, and there, like I said, they can sign up for my free monthly Mind, Power, and Money e-zine, and when they do, they'll get a free copy of a PDF copy of my book, Attract Money Forever. And right there in the right column, they can, click over to Facebook, Twitter. I got several Facebook pages and wherever else they want to connect with me. But that's really the best way. Sign up for the e-zine, get the free book, and then connect with me wherever you like to connect with me.
Okay. And yeah, of course, everything is linked up to the Talk in the Night website, where you can find out about it and so much more. And I want to thank you again, James, for coming on the show, talking about your experiences and also the book. Now, tomorrow night I have my guest, great friend that I've had on the show before, Chad Meek, as we talk about giant rock, aliens, and UFOs, all the way out in Landers, California, is where Giant Rock is. So we're going to be talking about that with him and so much more. So I want to thank you again, James, for coming on the show. It was a pleasure having you back on.
Yeah, thank you very much, Phil. It's been a pleasure for me, too.
All right, and so for everybody listening to Talk in the Night, I shall see you on the dark side. Good night from Talk in the Night.